Good morning and thanks so much for tuning in. This is ET Now. I'm Alex Matthew and what you're watching Buy Now, Sell Now. I must tell you that we're awaiting the verdict in perhaps the most high profile of courtroom battles in corporate India. And I'm talking about the Tata Mystery case, where perhaps minutes away from the announcement of the verdict in that case, and we'll bring you live updates. In the meanwhile, let's take a check of how the markets are faring as of now. It's a good session so far. In the first couple of hours, it's a relief from the torrid selling that we've seen over the course of the week. In fact, you had quite the tough expiry to witness yesterday. Sharp cuts for the benchmarks today, especially because of the handover that we received from the global markets. Benchmarks are trading with gains of about 1% each. For the Nifty, the breadth looks quite good, in fact, with over 40 gainers as we speak. For the broader markets too, in fact, the market breadth is looking quite good, with more than 2 gainers for every loser on the screen. But and as a result of that, you have actually the fact that the mid-cap index and the small-cap index are keeping up with the gains in the benchmark. What are the sectors that are in focus? All of them are currently trading in the green. Even the pharma index that was not too long back trading with narrow cuts, it's now trading with gains of about 0.2%. The Nifty Bank gaining about 1% in trade after losing ground in yesterday's session. But even yesterday, you saw quite a sharp recovery from the lows during that day. Now, besides that, you have the metals pack that is doing quite well for itself today. Yesterday, it was one of the packs that did not lose too much ground. Today it's gaining quite significantly, in fact over 2% as we speak. Remember, in the IEC yesterday, Rakesh Jhunjhunwala spoke about the possibility of a commodity cycle building over the next 5 to 7 years, and he said steel is one sector to watch out for. Of course, the overarching concerns perhaps remain going into trade or today, as well as perhaps in the near term, rising COVID-19 cases. But remember, even RBI Governor Shaktikanta had spoken about the fact that we're better prepared as a country to deal with any surges. All right, now let's go back to what we were talking about at the start, which is the Tata Mystery case. And my colleague Abhimanyu has been tracking this for quite a while now. And here's just a primer as to what to expect and what the context is going into that verdict.
It's a big verdict, the Tata Mystery case, in which the Supreme Court is going to decide the fate of Cyrus Mistry vis-a-vis Tata Sons, whether he is going to be reinstated, and more importantly, whether the Shapoorji Pallonji group will be allowed to exit from their stake in Tata Sons via pro rata distribution of shares, something which was categorically opposed by Tata Sons before the top court. The court had earlier held that prejudice is only proven if minority shareholders have suffered more losses, and mismanagement of a company cannot be complained unless it's of a magnitude which can wind up the company. Also, the top court had questioned whether a change in regime and articles of association lead to oppression. The court has also questioned the suo motu powers which are available to NCLT and NCLAT, and had raised a question whether a tribunal can rule to wind up a company to protect the shareholders. So clearly, the court is going to deliver its verdict on a plethora of issues, which is not only going to decide the fate of Cyrus Mistry and Shapoorji Pallonji with respect to their stake in Tata Sons, but is also possibly going to act as a precedent in many other similar cases.
All right, we'll track all the implications of that verdict. But in the meanwhile, let's go across to Mubina, who's got a wrap of all the action that took place on day one of the India Economic Conclave. Mubina?
Well, so far it's really been an exciting session of the India Economic Conclave, starting off, of course, with the RBI Governor Shaktikanta Das, and so many takeaways from the conversation that our managing editor Nikunj Dalmia had with him. First up, look at the confidence he does put into India's GDP projection. Yes, there is the fear of rising COVID cases, but guess what? They are staying put with that 10.5% FY22 GDP growth projection. He does not believe that any downward revision is needed. He also says that India is much better prepared to deal with the spurt in COVID-19 cases than we were last year. And on digital payments, well, this was definitely a topic he spoke about quite a bit. He says RTGS with multi-currency capabilities has the potential to expand its footprint beyond India. Moving on, he also says that, there is no fight or, disinvolvement of sorts between the RBI and the bond market. They want a very orderly evolution of the yield curve. Remember, we've been talking about how India's corporate bond markets still have a bit of a long way to go. And of course, let's not forget the ever spoken topic about the spike in the yield curves. And finally, on cryptocurrency, as the RBI, of course, is in the process of making its own cryptocurrency, he has categorically said the FinMin and the RBI are very much in the same school of thought when it comes to crypto. Well, let's move on now and take on board ace investor Rakesh Jhunjhunwala's views, which he shared with us at the India Economic Conclave. He believes that even in isolation, India can grow in double digits. PSU privatization is crucial for economic growth and that we are on the threshold of second generation reforms. Continuing with his theme on public sector, banks he believes are extremely undervalued in the PSB space, and that any correction that we are in the midst of due to rising COVID cases is for the big bull an opportunity to buy.
All right, now those were the key takeaways from day one, but we've got an action-packed day two as well at the IEC today, starting with Piyush Goyal, Dharmendra Pradhan, Hardeep Singh Puri, all those ministers there, the ministers for commerce, oil and aviation respectively. Then you also have KV Kamath, who's joining in on that panel. Besides that, you have quite the big names from corporate India as well. Dr. Pawan Goenka, who's, as you know, the managing director of M&M. You have Sanjeev Bajaj, the chairman and managing director of Bajaj Finserv, as well as S.N. Subramanian joining in another separate session. You also have R.S. Sodhi, the managing director of Amul, along with Ashok Tyagi, who is the whole-time director of DLF, and Puneet Chatwal, who is the head of IHCL, who will be in a third panel. Clearly, lots of interesting updates that you will get over the course of today from IEC. All right, now, as we await the verdict in that Tata Mystery case, let's take a look at some of the stocks that are in the center of action, and let's pull up the BNSN Cloud. The first, of course, is obvious. Tata Group companies as a whole, and there are quite a few of them, will be in focus based on the outcome of that case that you will hear perhaps in a few minutes. Let's look at some of the other stocks. So HG Infra is going to be in focus. It's declared the lowest bidder by the National Highways Authority of India for a highway project in Andhra Pradesh at a bid project cost of 1,060 crore rupees. GAIL India has signed an agreement to set up 100 CNG stations in Bengaluru city. Hathway Cable, now Reliance Jio will offload 19% stake in the company via an OFS, and the floor price of that OFS has been set at 25.25 rupees per share. You have Den Networks as well, where Reliance Jio will offload 11.6% at a floor price of 48.5 rupees per share. BPCL has been in focus in the recent past and particularly of late. Now, DIPAM Secretary at IEC said that the government hopes to conclude the company's privatization in the first half of next financial year. You have Lux Industries, which will invest 110 crore rupees in a greenfield project, which will be completed over the next 12 to 18 months. Varroc Engineering will issue 17.97 million shares to eligible qualified institutional buyers at an issue price of 389 rupees per share. Wabco India is seeing high demand from institutional investors for the offer for sale of the company due to attractive pricing, which Well, this relates to the ongoing sale of 700,000 shares, and that also has a green shoe option available. And finally, a few pharma companies in focus: Cadila Healthcare, Lupin, Torrent Pharma, and Sun Pharma as well are set to subscribe to a partnership interest in ABCD Technologies. The acquisition will cost 40 crore to each of those companies. All right, we're joined now by Kunal Bothra and Sharmila Joshi, and they're going to take us through their picks for you today. I must warn you, both of you, that we might have to cut out for the Tata Mystery verdict. But to start with you, Kunal, good morning to you. And it's a decent start to today, one must say, after that torrid session yesterday. What are your high risk and low risk ideas, though?
Good morning, Alex. Yes, a torrid session yesterday, and I think good to see finally some green on the screen, not just on our markets, but on the many global market fronts as well. So I think let's hope that the second half we build onto the gain on the index, and we see a lot of large cap names as well participating, which is not the case at least as of now in the first half of the recovery so far. So if many large cap names tend to participate, then we should see much more stronger recovery for the index overall. Now, I would expect a couple of names to do pretty well for themselves. So suggesting two buy calls for trade today. So first one which I'm suggesting is about United Spirits. Now that stock has very slowly and stealthily moved up from those 530, 535 levels to 555, 560. Both United Spirits as well as UBL has managed to outperform on the short-term charts. United Spirits is on a revival mode, and I believe that many of the indicators have gone through very strong, bullish divergence, signals for United Spirits. That generally indicates that this stock can see a very strong revival on the upside. So I think it's a stock which can see a lot of traction on the upside in the near term. Would suggest a buy in McDowell or United Spirits from a short-term perspective. Targets to be kept at approximately 590. Stop loss could be kept at approximately 540. Second is from the metal pack. Now in the morning as well, in the morning show, I'd given a buy on Tata Steel, expecting that many of these metal stocks can do pretty well for themselves because of the revival which we'd seen in the second half yesterday. So it's a very strong follow-through price action for Tata Steel, even from current levels. And the stock looks fairly attractive. Many metal stocks are now on the verge of a breakout on the upside yet again, or they're very, very close towards a breakout. So I think if Tata Steel also obliges with a fresh breakout for itself, it could lead to a new swing high for the stock on a multi-month basis. So I'm suggesting a continuation buy on Tata Steel, targets of 788, revised on the upside, and stop loss could be trailed higher to 730.
Kunal, I must say your first pick is quite interesting heading into the weekend, and Tata Steel, as we speak, is gaining about 4.4%. Let's head over now to Sharmila. Sharmila, good morning to you, and thanks so much for taking the time. What are your picks for us today?
I hope you find my pick also interesting, going into the weekend, because, my low risk idea is Voltas. As we are witnessing, temperatures around the country are rising, and especially in Mumbai, we've really witnessed a very hot day yesterday, and it looks like in the next 2 weeks are really going to build up. It's going to get even warmer. And we've already seen that getting reflected in the kind of sales that we are seeing for both Voltas and Blue Star. And both companies have indicated, in fact, that AC sales are very strong. And Voltas, as a matter of fact, reported a very strong quarter in Q3, and that traction is likely to continue if the kind of weather we've seen over these last couple of days is anything to go by. Then that traction is likely to continue in Q4 as well. So Voltas is my low risk idea. I think this stock has obviously gone up a fair bit in this last year. But I think even from current levels of closer to 980,000, you can easily get a 15-20% return on this stock. The high risk idea that I'm going with, again, is very close to the theme that Kunal spoke about. It's metals. I'm going with JSPL. Again, we've heard about the kind of revival that we are seeing in the commodity cycle, and JSPL is a very strong name within that. We've seen a very good set of numbers from them. I think the only reason why I feel the risk on this could be higher is this whole second wave that we are seeing, and what it could do in terms of the demand picture that it could affect in Europe and across the globe, and how that could impact stock prices here. But once again, I think if you're patient and if you buy the stock, we did see it go below 300 sort of levels in this correction that we, in this last couple of weeks. And I think that if you buy it at the current levels, you could, the kind of levels, first levels that I'm seeing for the stock are closer to 400, so that's the kind of upside that I'm seeing in Jindal Steel and Power. So those are the two ideas that I'm going with, Voltas and Jindal Steel and Power.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for sharing those ideas. Both of you do stay with us. We're going to go to, well, a developing story here. The Bhushan Power and Steel resolution is expected to be in the final lap. And we hear from our sources that JSW Steel and lenders may ink a deal as early as today, in fact. And Priyanka Iyer is joining in on the phone line to tell us more about that. Priyanka, what are you picking up?
At this point is that the deal in which the lenders had voted in favor of is likely to be closed today. JSW Steel will be transferring the 19,350 crore deal amount in an escrow account to PNB as part of the deal that was struck between the lenders as well as JSW Steel. Remember, 97% of the lenders had voted in favor of this deal that JSW Steel had extended. So the entire idea is that this money will be put in the escrow account, and if the Supreme Court ruling is not in favor of the deal, the money will be returned back to JSW Steel. So, of course, the Supreme Court ruling is something that we have to wait for, because, this deal has been dragging since 2018. That is when JSW Steel received the EOI. In fact, Bhushan Power and Steel was one of the 12 companies that was in the list that was put out by RBI for the companies that have to be taken to NCLT. And even now, it's still dragging in court. So we will see a conclusion of the deal today, is what we understand. We will be awaiting an official response from either the bank side or JSW Steel. And, the lenders, the top lenders to this deal are SBI and PNB. So probably something official from their side as well.
All right, Priyanka, we'll keep on top of that story, and we'll hear more from you shortly, I'm sure. In the meanwhile, let's slip into a short break, but we'll bring you a lot more on the other side. So do stay tuned. Welcome back. You're watching Buy Now, Sell Now. Now, of course, we're tracking the verdict in the Tata Mystery case, and that could be out any minute. Of course, the three-judge bench of the Supreme Court is going to determine whether there was oppression or mismanagement at Tata Sons, as has been alleged by Cyrus Mistry. And there will also be a decision on the legality of his ouster and the loss of his directorship. There will be implications on the stake of the Shapoorji Pallonji Group in Tata Sons as well. All right, let's go now to the queries that have been sent in by our viewers. And the first one is coming from Mithun Sarma, and he's asking about SRF that he bought at levels of 5,862 per share. He hasn't given us his buy quantity, but he said that he's looking to hold for the next 3 months. Kunal, coming to you on this one, and this is very clearly a short-term query. What's the outlook on this stock?
It's been an absolute stunner of a stock, SRF. I remember, that the stock earlier was extremely volatile. That was, I think, a couple of years back, 2018-19, when the stock had gone through those wild, gyrating, moves, 5-10% kind of moves was the, I think the average true range for the stock, which is a measure of volatility. I think it jumped up significantly for SRF. But I think post that, once the stock had crossed the 2,000, 2,500 levels, it's gone to a different behavior altogether. It's now become a very stable, a very narrow range kind of a stock. So even if you look at the last 3 months and you say that, yes, the stock has corrected or consolidated, but then, atypical to its behavior, it's corrected from 6,000 levels to 5,300 in a very gradual kind of a manner. So, which means when stocks generally change their characteristics and behavior, it typically whiffs off that they are starting or restarting a new trend for themselves. And that's generally very positive for stock prices. So I think SRF is a stock which is typically in that category. I would suggest that the viewers should hold on to the investments over here. The longer term prospect still looks very attractive. because of the inherent behavior of the stock price. In case if the stock comes back to say 5,000 or sub 5,000 levels, if the market goes through any kind of a short-term correction further, then I think you should take that as an opportunity to add further to your existing quantity on SRF.
All right, that's a fair point, and you said it, right? It's had a stellar run, nearly a doubler over the past year or so. Sharmila, I want to come to you on this one. This is one of several stocks in the chemical space that has actually done really well. Would you say that the future prospects are great as well, and should the viewer consider extending his time horizon?
And I think we must understand that why this stock has given such a stellar performance. Because I think, if you were to sort of rewind to about a year back, and when we had that whole anti-China sort of sentiment, there were a couple of industries which were supposed to benefit from, this sort of move that buyers would make to look at product outside of China, and chemical intermediaries, which is SRF's portfolio, was part of this, and which is why we saw that their numbers have reflected this, and we have seen that the growth that has come in SRF has been because on the back of good numbers, and this has come from every vertical that the company has. But precisely as you all were discussing, the run-up in the stock price has been absolutely stellar, and when you see markets correcting, I think it stands to reason that people will book profits on stocks that they have made money on, and SRF would be one of those. So I think my only problem with the query is the fact that the investor has a 3-month horizon, and March is a tricky month in any case, and we've seen that play out the last couple of weeks. So it becomes very difficult to take a call on this right now, but my advice to him would be to stay invested, but to increase his horizon to more than 3 months, and then stay invested in SRF. Otherwise, I think, if it's just a 3-month view, then it might be a better idea to switch, because in terms of valuations, it is priced in. But if you want to wait for further gains, and I'm sure they are there on cards, then you need to increase your horizon to more than 3 months.
All right, let's go on to the next question then, and this one is coming in from Rajesh Rahi. He's written in from Ulasnagar. Thanks so much, Rajesh, for writing in. You've got 30 shares of Home First Finance at a level of 569 per share, and since it is a recent listing, I don't think Kunal will have enough data to give us something on this, but I'm going to go across to Sharmila therefore on the fundamentals. Sharmila, it's lost a little bit of ground since that price, but he's bought at. What is your view on this company, and do you think that the leaders in this space would be a better bet, considering the kind of clout that they have, given the market share that they have?
I think a two-part answer. One, I think, is I would just like warn off a tip or a caution for people who put money in IPOs, because this again is one stock where we can see it getting played out, where on listing the stock runs up, and then you have like maybe a couple of weeks of very good movement, and we have seen that the month the stock listed in was a very good month for stock market as a whole. So you saw the stock rally from its IPO price. So sometimes there isn't really much wrong with the story as such, but the fact that it's a new listing, you just see people booking gains, and the investor unfortunately has bought it post-listing at a higher price than what the IPO price was, and now it's trading lower than the IPO price. So this is always a danger when you buy into a new stock which has just gotten freshly listed, because most of the stocks nowadays, they come at very fancy valuations, and when markets take a turn like this, you do see the stock prices correcting. Secondly, I think...
Sharmila, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to cut you off.